The talking animals. Once upon a time, in a world much like ours, there lived a group of talking animals. They were a peculiar bunch, and they spent most of their days in the forest, playing games and having fun. However, things were not always as peaceful as they seemed. One day, a group of hunters entered the forest. The animals knew that humans were dangerous, and they were afraid. They tried to hide, but it was no use. The hunters found them and began to capture them one by one. The animals were terrified. They knew that they needed to do something, but they didn't know what. Then, a wise old owl spoke up. "We need to band together and fight back," he said. "We cannot let these humans take us away." The other animals nodded in agreement, and they began to plan. They knew that they were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had one advantage, and they could talk. The animals came up with a plan to confuse and distract the hunters. They would use their voices to make it sound like there were hundreds of animals in the forest. They would also use their natural abilities to create chaos and confusion. The next day, the hunters returned to the forest. They were armed with guns and traps, but they were not prepared for what awaited them. As they entered the forest, they heard the sound of hundreds of animals calling out to each other. They were confused and disoriented, and they couldn't tell where the sound was coming from. Suddenly, a group of squirrels appeared, running in all directions. The hunters tried to catch them, but they were too fast. Then, a flock of birds swooped down from the trees, pecking and scratching at the hunters. The hunters tried to shoot them, but they were too quick. The animals continued to harass and confuse the hunters, using their voices and abilities to create a wall of chaos. The hunters soon realized that they were outmatched, and they fled the forest, never to return again. The animals cheered and celebrated their victory. They knew that they had saved their home and their way of life. They also knew that they had formed a bond that would last a lifetime. From that day forward, the animals lived in peace and harmony, protected by their newfound unity and strength. They knew that they could overcome any obstacle as long as they worked together. And so, the talking animals lived happily ever after, in a world where anything was possible, as long as they had each other.